Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is match day review time, and it's one that is going to be slightly different from a Gills perspective this weekend because, unfortunately, for the first time this season, we conceded a goal in the league and we ended up getting thumped to the tune of 3-0 by Ben Garner's Colchester United. As you can see, Reece is unavailable this weekend. He did tell me in advance, so it's not that he's just run away because we got absolutely dicked yesterday. So I'm joined for the first time this season, I'm pleased to say, making his Gills in the Blood debut. Well, aside from matchday vlogs, of course, it's Harry Kinslow. I will put his details in the description at the bottom of the video, but I'm sure you are all following anyway. Harry, appreciate you coming on. First appearance, so thank you very much. And we're also joined again for the second/third time over the last few days by Ryan. He is, of course, a very happy Colchester fan today. You can find him on Twitter at @TheUsOfficial, a newly started YouTube channel, as I told you the other day, if you watch the preview show. So let's get straight into it, gents. Before we do the team news and then the timeline of the game, I just think general overview for me was that it was never a home banker, was it, H, compared to what a lot of people were saying. Just because we were top and Colchester was second, I think there were certainly signs in some of their performances, not necessarily the results, that they're a decent side. And the biggest thing for me was the pace and power they've got in the final third. It's going to be enough to terrorise plenty of defences moving forward this season.
Oh, no, definitely. I think at the start of the season, you have to take the table with a pinch of salt anyway. You know, we saw that with Crawley last week. Obviously, people saying they're going to be sort of down there and they're up there. And now they went and lost 6-0 yesterday. So, you know, the start of the season, it's always the first few weeks. You're never really too sure. You're right. I did think, you know, they've got the pace and the sort of the power in attack, which we saw yesterday. Obviously, always they played a game less as well. You've got to take that into consideration. So, yeah, I never thought it was going to be a walkover.
And coming to you, Ryan, obviously, Harry's just alluded to it. You've got a game in hand because your first game of the season was weirdly postponed because of a waterlogged pitch. But so you sit 22nd now, you've got 3 points from 4 games, but you win that game in a hand, say by 1 goal, that takes your goal difference to 0, 6 points. Suddenly you'd be 16th. It's not an awful start considering it's a young team. It's still a team that's quite embryonic in terms of Ben Garner making it his own. So we spoke Wednesday on the preview show and said that we thought it was going to be a close game. I think you predicted 2-2. I said 2-1 to the Gills. Did you expect 3-0 though? I mean, I know you didn't watch the game live, but you've watched it back completely in its entirety. And you just mentioned before we press record that you saw that the score was 1-0 and thought, okay, fair enough. Like, if we can hang on or take a point, it's a decent result. And then you looked at full time and it looks like a bit of a hammering, but I didn't feel that was the case. Certainly for an hour, I thought there was barely anything between the two sides, and I thought if anyone should have led, it probably should have been Gills.
Yeah, no, definitely. Watching as you say, watching the game back this morning, I was able to go on Twitter last night, and I saw that everyone was saying for the first hour it was Gills, Gills, Gills. And watching it back, I'll be honest, sitting there, I was like, it's just a matter of time before you do break the defense and you get that goal. But I think when the first goal went in, it may have like dropped their heads a little bit. So it was the first time you conceded this season, and I think the players were like, "Oh, we've not had that this year. How, like, right, we now need to start playing." But then Tavide banging in that second, brilliant control by him. And I don't know if it took a deflection as it went in because Turner was going the other way, but I think at 2-0 is then the point where, with 4 games in, obviously 3 games, well, 4 games for us now, 5 games for you, it's you still can't really predict how the season's finished. I think Neil Harris said after the game, 12 games in is when you start to look at the season, because then that's when the the teams have started to unfold. But no way did I think we were going to come there and win 3-0. Like I said on the preview show, 2-2 draw. I think there was going to be goals. I genuinely thought that you was going to get one. But no, to come away with a 3-0 win against top of the league when you've been playing very, very well, I take it.
Oh, absolutely. Right, let's go right back to 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Team news came in. Harry, Gills lined up with the same back 5 including the keeper, as we have done in the league this season. There was no surprises in that. Jake Turner, Shea Alexander, Maxima, Shad Ogie and Scott Malone have been absolutely spot on generally for the first 4 league games. There was a couple of changes further forward. Timmy Dien came into the starting lineup alongside Sean Williams in the middle of the park. Connor Mahoney made his debut because of an injury to Dom Jeffries and the unavailability of George Lapsley as well. Johnny Williams started on the other side, and then it was Tom Nichols and Ashley Nadersson up front. There wasn't really any surprises in terms of the Gills lineup, was there? I know Mahoney maybe coming in straight away was as a little bit, but aside from that, it was pretty much standard selection for a side that's been playing all right and winning football matches.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't too surprised. Like you said, Mahoney did surprise me a little bit because he hasn't played much football in the last few seasons. So I wasn't sure that he'd be starting, especially as he'd only signed, obviously, on Friday. So you don't know how with the team and things like that. Well, you do, but it's not a lot. So, yeah. So obviously, yeah, that was the only real surprise. Yeah, apart from that, it's just the same old, really.
And for you, Ryan, it was Owen Goodman in goal, a back three, which you kind of expected, which was Greenwich, Hall and Egbo. We had Lawrence then shielding. I'm not sure it was because we've said on the preview show that the midfield is quite fluid. I'm just going off of how the app that I looked at had it set up. And then it was a midfield 4 of Shamadou, Chilvers, Reed and Fevrier. And then it was Taylor and Tavide up front. So again, no real surprises. You'd mentioned the injury to a couple of players in the preview show. They weren't available. You said that Kelleher was going to be available and at least on the bench, and he will be spoken about later in the show, unfortunately for us. But for you, no real surprises at all with Ben Garner's selection?
No, not really. I think Tavide coming back into the side, he is someone that we have missed. He is a young player that just wants to score goals. He's got a bit of a temper to him, and some would say likes to throw himself around on the pitch a little bit. The thing that I find that is quite interesting is, I believe it was the same for the MK Dons game, is I'm just looking up at how BBC Sport have the team laid out, and they've got Lawrence playing sort of in between the midfield and the defence, and watching the game.
Yeah, that's where we had. It
did look like that's where he was playing, and he's naturally is a centre back, but he's happy to have the ball at his feet, bring it forward, and try and sort of create something. So him playing in that role, he did look very, very sharp. Back three of Greenwich, Hall and Egbo was very good. It allowed us as well at points for Lawrence to drop back and go to a back 4, which is quite good. We've normally just sort of set our team out and the players play in their position. So it is quite nice to see a young centre back stepping into that sort of defensive mid role, stepping back into the centre back role, and then allows Junior and Jaden to push forward and be a bit more attackive. Noah Chilvers playing in the centre mids, I'm not a massive fan of it. For me, he is a playmaker. He's not really a box-to-box midfielder. He is the one that would get a chance created. So I'd like to see him more in behind the striker, but I'd much prefer a defensive cover at the moment than someone in behind, because Tavide, Taylor, Chamadou, February, Chilvers, Reed, they can all create something from their natural position. So I'd much rather the defensive cover than another man sitting in behind the strikers.
This is what we spoke about, didn't we, Wednesday? We said that the risk would be, if you had 3 midfielders that were same, that there was a chance that maybe we could catch you on the break if possession was turned over. And I thought we did do it at points. I think, Harry, our biggest problem, because we started quite brightly, I thought, Harry, we was on the front foot. I thought Mahoney was getting on the ball plenty. There was a couple of really, really impressive diagonal switches that got Scott Malone away the other side. And we seem to be playing the game in good areas. Lost my train of thought. Sorry, gents. All right, we'll carry on with that. I thought the start was generally okay. I thought we were, like I say, playing the game in the right areas. And Colchester, a couple of times, you could see they wanted to play it from the back, but we were putting pressure on, and then they was having to resort to just clipping it long and trying to turn us round. And I thought, for that first 10 minutes, I thought it would be all right here, because there was all the talk before the game of 95, 96. We'd won our first 4, and then game 5 was Colchester at home and we lost. It turned out being correct in the end. But after 15 minutes, I didn't think there was too much of an issue at all.
No, I thought we were pressing well. We had quite a lot of territory without really creating too much. I think the keeper's made a good save from a header from a corner. Apart from that, we haven't really created too much. That's sort of my concern with us, is that we seem to have a lot of the ball, sort of put it in, especially without Hawkins. We seem to sort of put it in the box, get into good areas, and without that sort of, like I say, the cutting edge. As much as we sort of on top of teams, we need to sort of get the goal while we're playing well. Because if you don't, what can happen. We've seen what can happen now.
Yeah, because we did have a couple of chances. There was the Tim Dieng header that you've already mentioned from Conor Mahoney's cross. I think he had another one a couple of minutes later, didn't he? That he headed just wide from Shea Alexander's ball into the box. And then Mahoney created a chance for himself as well. Wiggled away from a couple of players and drove one over into the away support behind the goal. Then, Ryan, I'm going to come to you. There was a big penalty shout from Colchester. Similar to the one the second half that we'll get to, but obviously I've got the benefit and Harry's got the benefit of being in that end of the ground. I'm just going to get Harry to nod or shake his head. Penalty or no penalty? But for Colchester, Harry, did you think that was a penalty?
Yeah, obviously, I didn't see. I was right in front of it, but you never really. I thought it could have been given. To be fair, I thought I've seen him given, and I thought, if that's given as well, that's a red card. So at the time, like I say, I was 50-50. But in the end, if it's just a yes or a no, I think it was. To be fair, he was wrong side. I can't see why he would go down without that sort of contact. Obviously, to win a penalty and a red card, but he's sort of wrong side. I do think, I've definitely seen him given.
For me, I thought it was never a penalty in a million years. I don't know where you sit exactly. I'm block 3, so we was like dead in line with it. I just thought that Shea Alexander and the lad were going, who was it, Taylor, when it were going, I thought they were going shoulder to shoulder, and Shea was just stronger.
I think, sorry to interrupt there, but I think
carry on.
That made me think it was he sort of had his I think it was his left arm round the sort of front of Taylor, which sort of made me think, he's playing a dangerous game there when he's got his arm sort of the right in front of the player. That I've definitely seen him given. I mean, you don't want to see sort of penalties given, things like that. But I think we did sort of get the referee didn't give it. If he'd have given it, I don't think we could have had too many complaints, really.
Fair enough. I suppose it also depends on where the referee's situated on the pitch, if you can see the arm going across, all that type of thing. Ryan, I'm going to come to you. What did you think? Because Taylor clearly thought it was a penalty because he got up. Maybe if he tried to stay on his feet as well as he did for the 40-yard run towards the official, he might have got in and got a shot off. But for me, Harry said he's not sure. He's seen them given. For me, I didn't think it was a spot kick at all. What was your take on it? Obviously, we all have a slight club bias.
So when I first watched it, I thought, that's a bit soft. Then I went back and watched it again, and Harry's alluded to it. For me, we spoke about his form in the preview show.
Mm-hmm.
For me, there is no reason why Taylor would go down there unless he is being pulled back. He's 4 goals in 4. He's in really good form. And at that position as well, if Turner had come out and closed him down and made the goal small from that position, a little pass across the box, if Davido was up with him, Davido taps it into an empty net. So for me, I don't think he would have gone down unless he was pulled down. Like you say, the 40-yard run afterwards, we all know the new rules that the referees will take 0 dissent. The fact that he's made that, I think if he'd have ran to the ref and the ref obviously said, no, it wasn't a penalty, and he left it, he'd have been all right, but he just kept going and going. But it's one of them. It was fairly early in the game. If that gets given, Gills go down to 10 men. It just completely changes the game completely. We're just going to sit back and it's going to just turn into a very boring game of football. But if it was against us, I'd probably be annoyed that it would be given, but I could also see why it would be given. So, yeah.
We've got 1 yes, 1 maybe, and 1 no. So we're still none the wiser, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll get on to another spot kick shout in the second half, and then we can discuss it and maybe sort of compare the two. But I think just after that, you had your best chance of the first half. I think there was good link-up play between Tavide and Shamadou, and it led to, I think it was Tavide got his shot off. It was a save that I think you'd expect Jake Turner to make, Harry, in his current form. He stood big and hit him in the chest or the arm, and we cleared it. But it was certainly a warning that despite us probably having more ball at that stage, that Colchester were going to be a threat on the counter-attack at the bare minimum.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, I wouldn't call it a clear-cut chance. Obviously, he was sort of the corner of the box, wasn't he? So he's at, his luck, and quite a comfortable save for Turner, really. But like you said, it's sort of, I was hoping that would sort of be a wake-up call, that the fact that we hadn't sort of taken our chances, well, sort of half chances early on, when we'd had the sort of territory, when we'd been the better side, we hadn't taken any sort of opportunities, and that it could have stung us. And I was hoping that'd wake us up, and didn't quite prove to be the case.
No, the game sort of then just drifted towards half time. Nothing really happened. It was like both teams had come out. So I remember saying to Boz on the Match Day Live, I said, "Cool, we've started really well." I said, but Colchester were giving as good as they got, and it was quite end to end. It sort of reminded me of like a basketball game a little bit, without any clear cut chances. We had the Goodman save early on from Dieng and the Turner stop that we just mentioned. But then there was like 15 minutes where it became bitty and stop start, and I think there was about 3 or 4 yellow cards. I think Egbo got one for time wasting again. The new rules. He got a couple of warnings from the referee and got a yellow card. I'm not sure why he then tried to look at the linesman and his own manager for help, because the referee had clearly gone like that a couple of times and he still didn't take the free kick. I think it's a correct call for that one for me. Scott Malone, correct call for preventing a quick throw. He tapped the ball out of the player's hands on the touchline by the Gordon Road stand. The one I wasn't sure was the Johnny Williams one. So I'm going to ask you, Ryan, again, because I'm going to try and get an opposition perspective, and then I'll come back to Harry. But I thought the Johnny Williams one on the edge of the box was really soft. I didn't think there was a lot of contact. And we'd obviously seen Taylor, correctly or incorrectly, for me, going to floor easily. We'd already seen Shamadou booked for definitely going to floor really easily, and rightly cautioned for simulation. I thought this was similar. I'm not saying this one was a dive, but I certainly didn't think it was a yellow card. Free kick, okay, but certainly not a cautionable offence.
I think it's one of them. You see them sort of fouls get given game in, game out, where you're like, that wasn't a foul. You then look at some other challenges that go and you think, oh, that was nasty, that could be a red, and the ref doesn't give anything. Was it an accumulation to him thinking, was the penalty a penalty? Should I have given it? Obviously Junior's one was just a blatant dive. There was if I was to come on here and say, no, he didn't dive, it was a penalty, then I might as well put a joker's hat on my head. He jumped over the player, landed, and then fell to the floor. I'm not going to use the word embarrassing, but I'll use the word comical. But like, it's one of them that I think the ref was sort of, he hadn't given much, and then I think he was like, right, this is it. I think the challenges were starting to fly in a little bit. I think he was trying to sort of set a standard, but yeah, it's one of them that you see it get given for your team, and you're like, oh, that's a bit harsh, and then you see it get given against your team, and it's like you say, you're like, that's never a yellow card. Foul, yes. Yellow, no. But yeah, it was one of them where I was like, it was a bit harsh, but you could sort of see why it was given.
Harry, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I'm same with Ryan. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I think, refereeing in League Two is a very hot topic. I think, there's a lot.
It is, and plus we've got the new rules to try and contend with as well, which is making it even harder from a supporter's perspective, I guess.
Yeah, and I think with the referee yesterday, as soon as he sort of opened up his notebook, he sort of got a bit happy with him. I think, he started trying to sort of even it up, really, if anything. Obviously, like you say, we had a few. Then obviously, there was sort of a time when there was about, I think, 4 or 5 yellow cards. Sort of, I think that sort of comes into the referee's head where he's like, or giving it for that team. I think, it's difficult because, there's a fine line between sort of a foul and a yellow card, really, because it could be like an accumulation, it could be for the foul. But Williams, I don't remember making any other fouls. So
he made 2 fouls in the game. I've just checked, only purely because Ryan said the word accumulation. So I thought we'd have a look. And there's another player that I want to talk about in accumulation in a little while, and he probably knows who I mean. For me, soft, but I suppose, like I always say on these shows, for anyone that watches, if it's the other way round, maybe I'm saying it's a yellow card. So, but it just seemed like Harry's made the good point that he'd gone through sort of 30 minutes I think he'd only booked one player, and then all of a sudden he was like, "Oh, I've got to give him one. I better even it up." And he turned into Santa Claus, didn't he? A little bit, and was dishing them out left, right, and centre. That was half time, and this is where I want to talk about one of your players, Ryan, because we were sat at half time and we was waiting for the crossbar challenge that never came. The poor fellas were stood on the pitch waiting for about 10, 15 minutes. Did our half-time analysis and then noticed that, was just about to do a half-time analysis and then noticed that Taylor was surrounding the referee and the officials again as they were walking off the pitch, to the point where two of his substitutes had to come over and tell him just to shush and to walk away, because he was starting to walk something of a tightrope, I felt.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that, unfortunately, on the replay, but I have read online that he just wouldn't let the penalty go. I think with these new rules, going up to the ref, unless it's to sort of shake his hand and say, "How are you? What are you up to later?" Just do not talk to the referees in the game, no matter what. The fact that he got away with it is very, very lucky. And then I think the start of the second half, what happened then, he was very, very lucky to stay on the pitch. And I think Garner saw that and was quickly to get him off. But yeah, it's these, like you say, these new rules, you just can't talk to the ref. Like a foul gets given against you, and if you shout the word ref, you can get booked. Whereas last year, being in a ground that doesn't have that many fans, hearing some of the things that players were saying to the ref, and he just lets it go, and you're like, okay, we now need to sort of chill what we say to referees, because yeah, you shout the word ref and he'll just book you.
Harry, what did you make of it? Because there's the yellow card for obviously chasing him first half. I think shortly after the yellow card, he then tripped Shadowgi as he brought the ball out from defence. He's then ran to the referee again at half time. Ryan's alluded to a couple of bits just after half time. We're going to sort of do this back to front. So we had the penalty shout, which we'll get to in a second. But I watched back the extended highlights before coming on to chat to you boys. After the penalty shout, the ball breaks to our left-hand side, and I think it's Malone and Ogie shielding the ball. And I didn't notice at the time on the pitch, Taylor just trips over Ogie again. But because we play on, because Scott Malone picks up possession, it sort of gets forgotten about. The referee doesn't go to him. So that's another foul. 2 minutes later, he then shoves Ogie off the pitch. And for me, this is the point where he knows he's gone, because he stands on the touchline against the hoardings, looking into the stand. For me, he's just waiting for the referee to run over and go, "There's your second yellow for accumulation. There's your red." And he'd have had no arguments. But for some reason, the referee seemed to give him like a third or fourth final warning. For me, he should have been off at 0-0. Harry?
Yeah, he definitely should have gone off, I think. With the yellow card, the dissent yellow card, you run at the referee 40 yards. That's a definite yellow in the new rules. In the old rules, probably yellow the way he ran at the referee. And then he, like you say, he's had a couple of fouls. I didn't actually see him go at half time, to be fair. So that's news to me, to be fair. I wasn't actually up at half time. So if he's done that as well, I can't believe, because I thought he should have gone after that foul just after half time, to be fair. So yeah, very lucky.
I'm just looking at his stats on SofaScore, which is an app that I use, which I think is similar to FOTMob and them type of things. At the time of his withdrawal, he'd made 6 fouls. So if we're talking about accumulation, plus run into a referee twice and a potential dive, I know it's the same incident. For me, Ryan, I'll come to you with your Colchester hat on. He's a very lucky boy, and I think Colchester were very lucky that they didn't play the last 40 minutes with 10 men.
100%, 100% agree. As you say, his body language, as soon as he shoved that player and he was standing on the hoardings, he knew he was gone. He even turned around and sort of put his hands up and say, like, "I'm really sorry, ref, like, please don't."
I think he glanced at Garner as well, as if to say, "Oh no, the gaffer's looking at me. I know I've done I've dropped one here."
That's one thing that I looked at when that happened, because it was so close to our dugout. I looked over at Garner, and I think the first thing he done was put his head in his hands, and then he turned to the bench as if to say, "Right, he's now coming off. It's at 0-0. Let's try and put like another defender, another midfielder on to try and shore up the team." And I think when he went over to the ref, he was thinking, "I'm about to get my second yellow." Chilvers went over there as well. Chilvers isn't the captain. I'm not sure why. He didn't go over. I'm also not sure why the ref didn't call the captain Connor Hall over to say, right, this is his last warning. If he sneezes on a player, I'm booking him and he's gone. That I found a little bit weird, but like you say, he commenced 6 fouls. So if you take the penalty away, the penalty incident away from it, of them fouls, the little trips and stuff like that, they're the ones where if you've already been booked, go, look, don't do it again. Then you tripped another player, right, this is your last warning. And then he pushed, what did you say? It was Dieng. Then he pushed him.
It was Ogie straight after half time. Yeah,
pushed Ogie, and it was like, that's it, he's gone. And yeah, the fact that he stayed on the pitch, I think that's why Garner was like, right, I need to get him off, because if not, he's going off.
Yeah, he lasted 2 minutes after that. I think it was basically just the 2 minutes was getting someone stripped and ready to come on. I think it was Bradley Ionoven, or wherever you pronounce it, I think, who came on, wasn't it?
But no, I think he was a lucky man to play the amount of minutes that he did play. But what I've seen so far of him, it's going to sound weird, but that seems like that's his game. If he's running forward to get the ball, and then a player is in front of him and he's not going to get the ball, he'll just do a little trip on them or push them, hoping that they'll do it back to him, and then he can play it and get a foul. Which I don't like that sort of thing. I don't like players sort of. I alluded to it in the Wimbledon game. I don't like players playing the game, but if he's scoring goals doing it, carry on.
Yeah, I suppose that helps, doesn't it? Harry, we spoke about the penalty shout for Colchester in the first half, and just before the Josh Taylor incident, again, we had a shout for a penalty ourselves. Tom Nichols got the ball, I think, right-hand side of the box, shifts it onto his left foot and drives into the penalty area. So I want to ask your views on this one, because you were the one that was the most yes towards the penalty first half for Cole U. So what was your view on the one on Nichols? Because for me, Fevrier is the wrong side. You can see the hands go out, Nichols goes over, and then Fevrier does the old usual one of them, which says, I think I've made contact, but I'm going to try and con the referee into thinking I haven't. If you're saying yes for the first one, are you saying yes for the second one as well?
Again, I've seen them given. I think the difference is, if they'd both been given, I don't think anyone really could have really complained. The only difference I think with the Alexander one is that he's almost wrapped his arm round Taylor, whereas with the Nichols one, like you say, he's sort of behind him. He hasn't really, he's in that sort of between the bodies. It's hard to see the contact if you're the referee. I can't. I'm on the fence. To be fair, it's a difficult one because maybe the referees thought, well, I'm giving that one. I'm not giving the Nichols one, if you know what I mean. So I think with the referee, the way he sort of acted with the yellow cards, sort of trying to even, maybe he thought, well, I'm not giving that one. I'm not giving this one. So, but I do think, if it had been given, couldn't really complain.
So I guess at least all we're asking for is consistency. So I think we're probably in agreement. If he gives the one on Taylor, he has to give the one on Nichols. He's not given the one on Taylor, so okay, he's not given the one on Nichols. I've been nice to referees 2 weeks in a row now. I don't like it. After that, I thought, Ryan, that Colchester had a really good spell. And I remember saying on the Matchday Live log to Boz in the ground, I said, they're causing us a problem here. We've got sloppy, we've got lax, we were making wrong decisions. We were making the wrong choices in terms of passes. And then a couple of minutes later, you took the lead. I don't think it's a good goal from our point of view. I think it's a corner that comes in. Was it a corner, though? I want to ask first. I'm going to go to the Gills fan first, because he's been quite neutral with his opinions so far of the big decisions. I think Jake Turner looked quite shocked that the corner had been given at the time, Harry. What did you... I know we're a long way away and I've watched the extended highlights, but for me, it looks like the ball drops onto the top of the net before Jake Turner gets any hands anywhere near it.
Yeah, so I've only seen it from my position in the ground. I haven't seen it back, but he did look quite surprised it was given. Obviously, I'm not going to agree or disagree with his corner because, like I say, my view was awful. Compared to the
we're miles away in the ground, aren't we? Obviously, from the other end.
Yeah, so whether it was or wasn't, you have to leave it on that one.
And we should defend it better once it comes into our box. Ryan, you've watched it on iFollow. What was your view of it? Because for me, I didn't see much of an appeal from Colchester players to say, oh, this is a corner. There was no one screaming and shouting saying it's a corner. And then everyone sort of stopped and went, "Oh, hang about, we've got to get into the 18-yard box here to set up for this set play." Did you think it was a corner or a goal kick?
I was chatting with you yesterday on Twitter, and you said about you, and I don't think it was a corner. So when I think there was a cross that Jaden Feathery put in just a little bit before, it might have been the corner before the goal, and that went across the face. And I was rewatching it backwards and forwards, trying to see if it took a touch off the player that was there, and I was like, I don't think that's hit anyone. Then watched the corner and was like, oh, where's the goal? Then the actual corner happened, and I was like, that's been given. It for me, Turner's body he sort of jumps, puts his hands up in the air to try and just make sure it's going over. If it's going to hit the bar, it's going to hit his gloves and then go over. So he was covering it.
Yep.
It didn't look like it touched him, but when he landed, he sort of went like that, as if to say, "Can't believe that's like tapped my finger or something." But yeah, no Colchester player, no Gills player was like, "That's our ball, that's our ball." It wasn't until it was given that the Gills players were like, "No, that was already out," and no Col U player was reacting as if to say, well, to be honest, their reaction was, "All right, we'll have another corner, no worries." And then that corner's the one that come in. But I think it was the corner beforehand where Jaden fizzed it across the box, and that's the one that I thought that it was the goal from, not the second one, because I didn't think Turner touched it. It was only really his body language after, which looked like he thought, "Oh, I've just tapped that over the bar," when it was like, obviously he's right underneath it. Did he think, "Oh, that was going over, I've accidentally touched it"? But for me, I don't think it was a corner.
Decisions, though. They go your way sometimes, and other weeks they don't. It seemed a few didn't quite go our way, but that's not the reason we lost the game. And I'm not sitting here trying to pretend it was. I think the biggest decision that could have affected the last half hour is Taylor staying on the pitch when I think he should have been sent off. But we didn't defend the corner at all well, did we, Harry? We had a few chances to clear it. We scuffed it. It sort of pinballed around our box. Then you've got to give Kelleher credit. He'd only come on, I think, 10 minutes previously. It's a smart finish, drilled into the bottom corner. Jake Turner had no chance.
No, and we've got to defend the corner better. That's the bottom line, isn't it? I mean, you can see we're throwing bodies on the line and things, making sure we don't concede that goal. But when you're sort of given the ball the opportunity to sort of drop in the box, you always got that risk it's going to fall to a Colchester player and they're going to stick it in the net, and that's exactly what happened. So yeah, I think we've got to defend corners better. Going forward, I think that's all I can say about it. Really, I think we just got to defend better from set piece there. I say maybe someone should have been, because I think a lot of the players sort of almost ran back onto the line, didn't they? There was 3 or 4 of them that sort of dropped it, and whereas the Colchester player sort of hung out a little bit and it sort of fell to him, and he had no one sort of around him, so he had that sort of opportunity to sort of put it away. So
yeah, it's not something that we've struggled with so far this season. We've defended our box brilliantly over the first 4 games of the season. We're not saying that we've not given up any chances. We have, but people are willing to stick their head or their chest or any part of their body in the way of shots and crosses to make sure that Jake Turner has as little work to do as possible. So it was very uncharacteristic. Neil Harris reacted and made a double change. Ashley Naderson and the captain, Sean Williams, came off, and we put on Macaulay Bonne and Ethan Coleman, who we'll come to in a bit. I thought we reacted quite well to going behind, Harry, because that was the thing for us, wasn't it? It was very new to us over the last 5 or 6 games, if you go back to last season, because we won our final game of the last campaign by 1 goal to 0 as well. So we've been very good at taking the lead and then sitting in and defending our box and playing on the counter. And now we were going to have to be a little bit more open. And I thought we got into good areas again for 5, 6, 7 minutes. There was a couple of balls fizzed across their box again. I think there was the chance, wasn't there? The corner that got cleared, and then Shay Alexander had a bit of a swipe at it and miss-hit it, and Macaulay Bonne does what you want Macaulay Bonne to do in the 6-yard box. He's alive to where the posts are. Flick header that looks like it's going in the top corner, and to be fair to Owen Goodman, he made a very good stop to fling his hand up and push it around the post for a corner.
Yeah, so just to firstly touch on the substitutions you've obviously said about, I honestly think they should have been made sort of 5-10 minutes beforehand. I just think that you could see that Colchester was sort of growing into the game. They were sort of the side on top at that point. I think Ogie's made a great challenge to a player running through, and then Williams has made a great challenge as well. So I think you could see at that point, I thought, and I think most fans thought, that if anyone was going to score, it was going to be them, and then they did.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
That I think, Harris should have been a little bit more sort of proactive rather than reactive. I think the changes should have come, and then when they did come, I was quite surprised Johnny Williams stayed on the pitch. I thought he was quite quiet yesterday. I thought, he's playing in the wrong position though for me. I can't see why we're playing him out on the left. I know he sort of played a little bit in the past, but I think he'd be such a better player, sort of in the middle, sort of making things happen.
And I thought so. I think he played on the left, but as a 4-3-3 for Swindon, didn't he? It was slightly different. Whereas now you're asking him to be an orthodox winger. I'm not sure he's entirely comfortable. For me, at the moment, I agree. Johnny Williams is basically this season's George Lapsley.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's such a waste of a player of his caliber that we've got in. We've started another. Bradford tried to sign him, and I don't know where they would have played him. Obviously, we don't know what would have happened with that. But I think it's such a waste of his sort of ability out wide. And to move on, obviously, like you say, I think we did react quite well. I think that obviously we had a couple of corners, and like you say, one of them led to the sort of Bond chance. Again, I think we had territory for a few minutes, but I never really thought like we was going to score. The Bond header, I don't think it was from where I was sitting. I don't know if it might have been sneaking in. I think it was probably going to hit the post more likely.
That was the only save the keeper made again, wasn't it? And I think the only other effort of note I can remember was Mahoney again, made his own space and drilled one straight down Goodman's throat, which he basically fell on.
Yeah, exactly. So I just don't. I think the problem with us is that it's almost we when we get the first goal, I'm completely confident in us, and we've seen that in January that when we get the first goal, I don't think we've lost, I don't think we've lost since when we scored the first goal. So when we got the first goal, I'm completely happy. I know Harris sort of knows the changes to make. When we need a goal, I'm not totally convinced that we sort of know how to sort of get back in the game. Whether that's sort of carrying on from last season, where obviously when we went behind, we knew we weren't scoring in the first half of last season. Whether that's sort of carried over a little bit, but I think since we've I looked last night and it was since January we've gone behind I think we've gone behind 10 times in matches. I think we've only won one of them, and I think if you're going to be at the right end of the division, you need to sort of
I think there's lots of draws. There's been a few draws coming from behind, hasn't there? But I think only Wimbledon in the league is the one that we've won.
Yeah, so I just think if we're going to sort of be at the right end of the division, we do need to. That's something we need to sort of address. That we need to sort of. I think the thing is as well. I think we've got the caliber of players to do it on the bench now. We got the changes we can make to sort of change the game. But I just think it was sort of too little, too late yesterday. Especially for Jaden Clough, I think he should have come on. I think he might have sort of stretched the game a little bit because
I'd have started him.
Yeah, so I would have as well. I think where they had that sort of free midfield as well, we tried to play with wingers, but like we said, Johnny Williams isn't a winger. I would have taken him off for Clark probably after they scored, if not just before the first goal. I think it's a learning curve for us, really. I think it showed that we are gonna we do need. I don't know. I wouldn't say we need more players because I think we've got the right balance. It's more what we do with the players, sort of how we sort of get back in the game. Obviously, sort of 10 minutes after there was, that was sort of put out, but I'll let you carry on with that.
Yeah, that's it. Unfortunately, it was something again that was uncharacteristic of us because I think all through Neil Harris's reign, I think the issue's been scoring goals at one end. I don't think we've ever been awful defensively. I think if you look at league games, even going back to the League One season, how many times have we conceded more than twice in a game? I'm thinking Portsmouth away, back end of the relegation season. We lost 3-1.
Yeah, I think Swindon, January, obviously that was a crazy game.
Plymouth at home, relegation season. And then I think it's only Swindon and yesterday. I don't even recall us conceding 3 in a league game when we was absolutely horrific from August to December of last year. So it was from that side of things, it was very unlike us again. But credit Colchester, Ryan, they took their chance again. The second goal, again, I don't think we cover ourselves in glory from a defensive perspective. We have chances to get rid. It comes to Tavida down the edge of the box. To be fair, his first touch is really good. I've seen comments on social media saying that Maxima should be dropped. I think you have to give credit to Tavida. It's a brilliant first touch. He sends Emar into the stand and then he drills one in the corner. You've mentioned you thought there was a slight nick. I didn't think there was a nick at the time, but having watched the highlights, I thought there might have been a slight one based on what you said, because Turner looks like his weight's falling one way and it goes the other way. but you've got to give Tavide loads of credit because the first touch is immaculate and the finish to match. And then I think that was probably game over.
Yeah, no, definitely. Tavide, he's one of them players for us this year that is going to be hopefully very, very good. His first game that he played for Colchester, he started against Doncaster last year. We beat him 4-0 at home. The ball got played over the top to him. He's running towards the goal and he just levered it as hard as he could with his left foot and put it in top corner. He's got the confidence in himself to get the ball and take shots and score goals. But no, 100%, the touch for him to bring it down, and then it's just settled nicely on his right foot to take that shot. And yeah, I know there was a player sliding in, whether it took a deflection off him and then went the other way, but yeah, it did seem that Turner was wrong-footed. On COU's YouTube page, they've got a goal cam, and I think for all three of the goals when they went in, the first words Jake Turner shouted was, "It's too easy." The first goal, that was just a goalmouth scramble. Kelleher's a centre half. He's seen the ball and just gone, "Oh, I'm going to have that." And I've seen him before, like Kelleher's, go in the bottom corner. You've seen him smack into the top corner, smack the bar, and you've also seen him go flying over the stand. So for that goal, it was just a goalmouth scramble, and he just hit it, and it went in bottom corner. But Tavide's one, brilliant takedown. And like I say, he's a young lad, to be able to have the confidence to bring that down and go, "No, I'm having this shot," and to score. And when he scored, you could see what it meant to him. He'd just been out on a 3-game suspension for a kung fu kick, is the only way I can describe it, in the Cardiff game. So he wanted to get back in the team, hit the ground running, and he did that 100%.
Yeah, spot on. Is that another thing we can level at us, Harry, is that we perhaps don't take these snapshots when they fall to us edge of the box enough? I've said we had a couple of efforts from Mahoney yesterday where he's created his own space, but the keeper can set himself for that because he can see the intent of the run towards the box. There was a phase of play, I think, during the game yesterday, and I was recording, and I shout, "Someone just shoot, like stop trying to score the perfect goal." It's like we play some lovely stuff from box to box, and we know how many times Harry said, certainly in that relegation period, we weren't good enough in both boxes, certainly the first half of last season. That came back and bit us on the arse massively yesterday, because I thought from 18-yard area to 18-yard area, there was no issue. There was no difference in the game, really. Colchester was so clinical when they got their chances. We seemed to want an extra touch or an extra pass all the time.
Yeah, the game's won in both boxes. I think, like you say, between the boxes, I think we're pretty decent. We get in like I say, we can get in the territory. The only thing I do think is sometimes we try and sort of force it a bit too much, where we're playing passes that's not sort of almost sort of long passes, where we can sort of take our time a little bit. Funny enough, the last sort of 10, 15 minutes, I thought we did that too much. I thought we were messing around too much at the back. But I thought before that, I thought we were trying to play it too forward too quickly. When we're at home, I thought we should just calm down a little bit, sort of got into the right areas, and then sort of taking the shot, and then getting the right position to take the shot from. I think with the Mahoney one, sort of that rolled to the keeper, I think I shouted shoot at him, and then someone went to me, "Why'd you shout to shoot?" You know what I mean? So, but I do think that's what I liked about Mahoney yesterday, is that he did have those sort of couple of shots. I think the first one's obviously, I don't think it's as far away as it looks in the first half. It's, I'm happy that he's taken the opportunity, sort of, he's seen that there's a chance, he's hitting it, and I think we haven't really got much of that in the team. You even look at the midfield, and there's no one there sort of notorious for scoring sort of screamers, but she's sort of, they can make the difference at the end of the season if you've got a player that sort of a couple of screamers. And so I do think I like that Mahoney signing, where he did look like he was, when there wasn't a lot on for him, he sort of tried to make his own thing happen, and that's always a positive, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see more of it, and I'd like to see more of it from other players as well, because I think people like Tom Nichols have certainly got the technical ability to be able to, hit the target from 20, 25 yards. And Ashley Naderson, I think, should be doing it more if he gets into opportunities. He can't be playing with no confidence. He's scored 3 in 6 games for us since arriving. So something to work on. If the game wasn't already over at 2-0, it certainly was at 3-0. It's a brilliant finish from Bradley. I'll let you pronounce his name, Brian.
But I'll be honest, I was about to wait to see how you pronounce it. I pronounce it Ihovin,
That'll do.
The commentators were saying something different, but I pronounce it Eindhoven. Just call him Bradley.
Yeah, we'll call him Bradley, and it's a really smart finish from Bradley to clip it over to Jake. Jake Turner. I think Jake's got caught in no man's land. It's one of them, but we're chasing the game. We're so open by that point. There's calls of offside. I think he has gone slightly too early, Bradley, but from there on in, the flag doesn't go up. It's a brilliant finish. I laughed at the time and I said, "Boy, he likes playing FIFA." That was L1 and the shoot button when it clips it over the keeper, a little nasty lob and it just dropped perfectly into sort of grazed the back of the net as it came down under the crossbar. And that was certainly game, set, and match. And based on the final half hour, I don't think Harry can argue that Colchester didn't deserve to walk away with the points.
No, definitely. I thought, as I said, that we started well. Then it was a sort of nothing game. There was not a lot in it. There weren't a lot of chances. And then I thought we were at home. You sort of, especially after we conceded, you thought you got sort of give us a kick, sort of come on, like let's. But I thought, like you say, it sort of happened sort of 7 or 8 minutes. The second goal goes in, nothing. It sort of gives us, as much as we've got better players this season, things like that. I think it felt very much like last season where they got the second goal. Well, we're never scoring 2 goals. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how I felt. I think we got the capability to do so, but I think where we haven't sort of shown that yet. Obviously, I know we had that sort of phase against Southampton. We got 3, but in the league we haven't really shown that we can score. Fluently. We can sort of get these goals when we need them. When we conceded 2, I think the players sort of, or their body language as well, they sort of thought, well, we're not really scoring 2. That's how I felt anyway. With the third goal, I think it's definitely offside. Looking back, I thought, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it because I think the game was over before.
Yeah, I don't think it makes no difference to the final outcome, does it? It's one of them. I see people saying on Twitter it was 5 yards offside. It certainly weren't 5 yards. I think he's gone early. Yep. Max Amos stepped up just at the right time, but it's a good finish, and it certainly had no outcome on the result, whether it was given or not. I just want to talk to you about Southampton. You've mentioned there, Harry, because people are going, why can't we play like we did against Southampton? We scored 3, we created loads. League 2 is a bit different to playing Southampton in the Cup, unfortunately, isn't it? Because Southampton are going to come and they're going to keep trying to press and they're going to keep trying to play through. And it was a Cup game as well, so they was going to be open and trying to get back into the game, which then made it easier for us. I'm not saying it wasn't a good performance, not at all. But teams like Colchester, no disrespect, teams like Sutton, Stockport, they're going to sit in and be direct and be hard to beat. Crawley were probably the slight exception to the rule in terms of they want to pass and pass and pass and pass. Whether that's the right way or the wrong way, I think winning football matches is the right way, essentially. But is it right to compare the Southampton performance to the league games? Because it's a completely different competition for starters. There's a different mindset because it's a knockout game. And tactically, teams are not just going to keep trying to pass through us to get back into a league game in the same way they are if they're trying to keep themselves in a knockout competition.
No, it's a completely different ball game. You're right, it is, and obviously, I think the thing with the Southampton game as well, like I said, a big night, a big crowd. The players are more up for it, and that sort of puts the ball in the net sometimes, especially at Priestfield. So I do think you are right with what you're saying. What I do think though is it shows we've got the capability to put the ball in the net 3 times. Yeah. You haven't done very often over the last few years. So I just think that was sort of the positive for me, is that as much as they say we haven't conceded 3 for the last few years, I was trying to think games I've been to over the last few years where we've actually scored 3. I think so. We got Swindon, and I don't think I thought of any others off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
I can think of Colchester in the Pizza Cup. And aside from that, I think if you're going to a league game, I think you've got to go back to Steve Evans.
Yeah, exactly. So
someone like Lincoln away, Swindon away, 3-0 and 3-1.
Yeah.
The COVID season behind closed doors, I think.
Yeah,
that's probably why we can't remember, because we weren't allowed to go.
I'm honest, I've sort of forgot about that. Like I say, I can't remember the last time I sort of saw us 3 goals, especially at Priestfield. So that was a sort of almost a relief to think, are we going to kick on from it? As much as you say, it's a very much a one-off game. I thought maybe, we've got the sort of players, we've got the ability to score 3 goals. Are we going to kick on? It didn't quite work out like that in the next few games, I don't think. I think Accrington we were comfortably better. I think we we should have won that game by a couple more. But since then, that's my sort of concern with us, is that we even if you look at the goals we scored this season, is there a lot. We've got a couple from set pieces as well. From open play, I think we've only got 2 goals or something, haven't we? So if there's anything to sort of take from yesterday, I'm hoping that it will sort of give us a kick. If like I say, it will sort of show us we're not invincible. We're not going to go the whole season without conceding a goal. So it will, I hope that we sort of get a reaction from that, and we sort of look at it and go, right, why did we lose yesterday? Why were we the worst team? We're at home. We should have put more sort of on them. And I think, I hope that's sort of after the game, as you come away, I was upset, as you always are after you lose, especially. I think what I took away from it after was that hopefully like I say, I want a reaction from that, really.
Yeah, of course we do. 100% we should do as well. And I think generally we have reacted well to home defeats, certainly since January. I'm just trying to look back at the results now frantically. Because we've only lost 2 home games. 3 home games this year. Bradford, Newport, and now I'm just going to have a look at the results quickly. Yeah, Bradford at home, we lost 2-0, and then we went and got a point the week after at Harrogate, didn't concede. Newport, we lost 2-1, and then went to Salford, kept a clean sheet, and won final day. So fingers crossed we can go to Grimsby and keep a clean sheet next week. Well, we've got Luton in between, so but I'd rather win at Grimsby than at Luton, no disrespect to the Carabao Cup. I want to come to you, Ryan, about the final talking point of the game, and that was the red card for Ethan Coleman, because you messaged me last night on Twitter and said you'd seen a grainy video of it. Someone had filmed their TV. You said you thought it was harsh. I mean, it wasn't a great view for me and Harry in the ground because the players are like sort of there, so we're blocking the view. It's not like you can see it side on and I follow. What's your thoughts on it now, having watched it on a clearer TV screen? For me, I think it's a yellow card. Because I think if you look at the shape of both players' legs, they're both on the stretch, they're both on the lunge, they've both got their feet up. One has to get there slightly before the other. I don't think Ethan Coleman's endangering Reid in any way, shape or form. It's not like his legs planted and he's gone crashing into him. They're both trying to pinch the ball off of each other. I thought, again, the referee was just a bit quick to get the red card out, especially considering the amount of warnings. I don't want to keep talking about it, but the amount of warnings he'd given your lad throughout the first hour, I just thought he was very swift to go to his back pocket for that one.
Yeah, it was when I first saw it, like I say, it was someone recording their TV, and when I first saw it, I thought, oh, studs up in the shin, like into the shin pad. I thought, yeah, straight red. Then I watched it back again and thought, well, it doesn't actually look like his foot is raised. It looks like he's tried to just tap the ball round Reid and then run round. I think there was a Gills player either side of him. It was one of them. Both players were both going for the exact same outcome. Reid maybe got there just a little bit before. He possibly did catch him, but I don't think there was any intent to obviously cause any harm. There was no, from rewatching it on the replay this morning, studs weren't up. It was just one of them. He's possibly come over the top of the ball, but if he's caught him, it's ever so slight. Reid's obviously gone down, holding his leg. Then the ref sort of, he blew the whistle, he stared at it, and you could see he was giving himself some time, and then just straight away it was just red card. And I again, we've alluded to it obviously earlier on, saying that you see them given, you see them not given. That was given. If that was the other way around, if that was Reid on Coleman, I'd be upset. I'd be like, that's quite harsh. But the other way around, I think it was. I'm not going to say it was a poor decision. I think maybe a yellow would be all right to just straight away. Like I say, he gave himself time to think, but was only a few seconds, and then straight away was just red card. Whether the linesman on this side was saying to him, "Yep, that's a red," I think it was a bit harsh.
Harry, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I was quite shocked when he pulled a red card out, to be fair. I thought that, it was a 50-50 challenge, really. They're both going for the ball. Obviously, the difference would be for me is even when I've seen it back, it's not quite clear as where it sort of connects with the Colchester player. If it's sort of higher up towards the knee, then I would have thought straight red, but it doesn't look like that. It looks sort of lower down the leg, just sort of above the foot almost. So I can't really see why it's given. You know, it's definite yellow. Don't be wrong, he's late, but I think red's very harsh.
Yeah, because you say what they say constitutes a red card: 2-footed, out of control, or endangering an opponent. I don't think it's any of them three. I think
No,
I froze the shot of it watching it on iFollow, and both players are in literally the same position. They've got their other standing foot's obviously planted on the floor, and both of their legs are going towards the ball. Like we said, one has to get there slightly before the other, or they both get there at the same time, and we just carry on. I think, I don't know, it's just frustrating again. Like I say, he was so quick to make that decision and give a straight red card. And studs up, what does that mean? You can't go in for a challenge like that with your foot completely flat. You can't keep your ankle and your foot at that angle. There has to be a degree of your studs being on show a little bit. And for me, was very, very soft.
Yeah, I think if Gillingham appeal it, I think 100% it would probably get rescinded. I think the referee gives time to look back on it. He might be sitting in the change room thinking like maybe that wasn't a red card, but then you also, yeah, like you were saying, think about how many chances Joe Taylor had that he's possibly is that going on in the back of his mind, thinking I should have brandished the red card earlier in the game. Like this is my chance to now give a red card, but I think if you appeal it, yeah, I reckon it will get rescinded. Because the problem is if where he's giving it as a straight red, that could be a free match ban. So it's one of them where I feel for the lad. This is going to sound a bit weird. I'm glad that it happened at 3-0 at the end of the game. I'm glad it didn't happen at 1-0 and you were just starting to get back into it. But yeah, I think appeal it and it'd get turned over.
Yeah, because I think Neil was asked in his press conference, but he said he'd not watched it back, so it'd be interesting to see what happens with that one. Right, just before we start finishing up, I'm going to stay with you there for a couple of seconds, Ryan. Just a general overview of what you thought of Gills, obviously over the 90 minutes. What you've seen so far this season. Do you think we've got the players, the manager to be up and around the top positions in the table, or do you think that maybe our position is slightly false, considering we're now averaging less than a goal a game? What's your take on the Gills?
I remember last season we played you. I believe we played you on Boxing Day, and it was a 1-0 win. Junior got the goal, and that Gills team that we played then, compared to the Gills team we played at home after you had the new chairman come in, you had the transfer window, you had Neil Harris come in, and you beat. I think it was 2-0 in the reverse fixture, and you brought so many fans down. You were vocal all game. The team that you was a year ago to the team you are now are like this. You are massively different. I think Neil Harris, with the capabilities and everything going on from last season, you look from Christmas to the end of the season, it was both of us that were the sort of form team. We were both picking up wins when we probably shouldn't have. We were picking up the good draws. And I think in the form table, I think he was up near the top as like one of the most informed teams for the second half of the season. I think you've got a good squad to really push on. I was going through watching all the content creators of their League Two tables. I genuinely think this season Gills will be. There's always that one team that will be in the playoffs all season and they'll drop, and then a team from the bottom will drop up. I genuinely think that this season the Gills will be in and around the playoff shouts. I think easy top 10 finish for you this year. You've looked strong, and the strikers you've got in, obviously Hawkins, I believe, is out injured at the moment for a little bit, but you've still got Tom Nichols, Macaulay Bonne, Narsden, all three of them, and then to have Hawkins come back in, they're all very, very good, proven League Two players. You've got George Lapsley, who's a proven League Two player. You've got Dieng and Williams, or Sean Williams as your sort of holders. You've got Johnny Williams, who is, if I'm honest, too good for this league on his day. Just all round, you've got a solid team. And I think you'll do do well this season.
Aaron, I'm going to come to you there because Ryan alluded to Neil Harris, and there was quite a few comments on various social media outlets after the game yesterday. Some saying he's tactically inept, he hasn't got a clue, which I think, quite frankly, is absolutely ridiculous. If we look at his record in 2023, because if you break down his reign, he came in January 2022, 10 points adrift in League One, nearly kept us up. Absolute miracle that would have been, and he nearly pulled it off with Steve Evans' mess. All right, the first half of last season was shocking. I think we should have still scored more than 6 goals in half a season. I think so. Neil takes some of the blame for that at the very least. But I think since the takeover and him being given the proper tools to work with, he's proven himself to be the right man for the job. We've played 29 games this calendar year in the league. We've won 16, drawn 5, lost 8, 53 points at 1.84 points per game. Gives you 84 points over a full season, that average. He's still the right man, isn't he? Surely, just because we lost to Colchester yesterday, it doesn't make him a bad manager. He has his flaws, I totally get that. And he's stuff he's got to improve on, the final third being probably the one that makes us potentially the team that can get into the top 3 rather than below that. But calling for his head or calling him tactically inept and not having a clue is a bit much, isn't it, for one defeat in 6 competitive games this season?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, if I don't think he's not going to be sacked because we know Gallinson's backing him, and B, you have the same old people, don't you? We know that sort of as soon as we concede 1 goal and you sort of lose their heads, and it's one game, it's a long season. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I do think he has to take some of the responsibility yesterday because I think there's sort of 7,000 fans could see the way the game was going, and he sort of didn't change it up before the goal happened. As I say, he should have been more sort of proactive in that, sort of change the game before we conceded. And also, I do think that quite often, obviously with Hawkins out, it's difficult, but I think we showed. I remember it was against last season. It might be Stockport at home where we played like a 4-2-3-1. We played really good football, and and we should have probably won that game, and we conceded right at the end. I think so, and I just think quite often, especially yesterday and in the last few games, we look to go sort of. I think in the first half we done it well, where sort of Mahoney played it to Naderson, and there's a type of sort of long ball to play, if you know what I mean. When you're sort of chasing it in behind with like a Naderson, I get it. In the second half, when we were sort of looking to score, we were sort of pinging it long to Nichols, and I just sort of like some like plan B was try harder at plan A, if you know what I mean. It was like there wasn't really so he's definitely the right man for the job for me, but I do think there's some things that he needs to look at as there is with every manager. I think no managers are perfect, but I just think especially when we go behind, he needs to sort of look, and I think maybe if I'm sort of defending him here, he's maybe not used to sort of looking behind him and thinking, oh, we got all these players on the bench, so he's not really used to. But last season, the 11 we started with was our strongest 11 by far, so he didn't look to change it because it might cost us the game or something like that. Whereas now we've got the sort of players on the bench. So I think but I hope it will come with time. As I say, I think he's got to take responsibility for the game yesterday, but. There's no, he's the right man for the job. I think, this is a results business, and if he's getting results, what is there to complain about?
This is it, yeah. And I totally get your point. But just to play devil's advocate on yesterday, he can set us up however he likes, but if we don't defend our box properly and don't clear the ball with 3 or 4 chances and allow them to shoot in the box 3 times, that's not tactics, formation, system. That's just on players having an off day. So I think it was more we just had a really bad day at the office yesterday, or a really bad half hour. Certainly. I guess the other thing as well is because you said about should the changes have come earlier, if he makes the changes and then we concede, he goes, well, why did he change it? It was still 0-0. We were still in the game. So there he's probably in a lose-lose situation. But I think we all agree the biggest thing is just finding a way just to just unlock defences more in the final third. And we've got to learn to chase games better as well, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. It's a scrappy league, let's be honest. We've won 1-0 the last few games, and you do get quite a few games in a division like that, and you also get goal thrillers. It's about finding a way to win on the day, and regardless of whether we lost 10-0 yesterday or 1-0, it's 3 points up for grabs, and we've got to sort of forget about that now. Go on to the next game. Even look at teams like Orient, for example, because they won the league last year. They lost games. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we weren't going to lose games, and I think to call for his sort of head after one defeat is just ridiculous, really. As I said, I was the first one to criticise him yesterday. I was, to say that I think as much as you say the players are responsible, the players didn't play well enough, and but also I do think that sort of five, as much as the goal come from a scrappy, they did sort of have the territory. Whether they should have or not with the corners, we don't know. But even before that, they had a couple of chances. So it's a tough division. It's about finding a way to win, and sometimes you can play really well and lose, and sometimes you can play awful and win. And I think it's finding a way to win, and I think Harris knows how to do that.
That's it, yeah. He's done it 55% of his games over this calendar year. So he's doing more right than wrong. I think it's just about them last final pieces to perhaps push us over the line. Before we finish up, I just want to talk to you, Harry, about Colchester. Bottom of the league coming into the game. We all said false position. They'd got a game in hand. Like we've already mentioned, they win that game in hand. They're suddenly 15th. So they're a third of the way up the table, and then they can start looking towards the top half. They're a young side. I think me and Ryan spoke about Ben Garner on the preview show. I think he was very good at Swindon. I think aside from that, he's been a bit patchy as a coach. Excuse me. But based on what we saw yesterday, I can't see him being in any danger at the bottom. I think they'll be sort of probably comfortably in and around sort of mid to lower mid-table.
Yeah, definitely. I think in my before season predictions, I've got in about 15th, 16th. I thought, obviously when we played them last season, I think they're around sort of the bottom half near us, and they sort of picked up towards the end of this season, as Ryan said. And they had, the thing is that with yesterday, which I'm sure Colchester fans will take great sort of joy from, it. They scored 3 goals, and if you score 3 goals in any level, you've got a chance of winning games, and they've got that sort of ability in the side. I think that what do we call him, Bradley? That Bradley scored his first senior goal, and I think I looked and he scored sort of 10 in 10 for the under 23s or something last year. I don't know how accurate that is, but he's a goal scorer clearly. So they've got goals in the side, which is a big thing at the level.
Absolutely, yeah, gents. I think we've covered it all. It's been really good to sit down and, unfortunately, from our point of view, dissect a first defeat of the season. But it is only a bump in the road that Neil Harris does like to talk about quite regularly, and I think it will just rein in a little bit of probably the overexcitedness amongst the fan base, because it is only 5 games in. But if you only lose 1 every 5, you're only going to lose 9 or 10 in the season, which is going to have you there or thereabouts. So a frustrating weekend for the Gills. A very good weekend for Ryan and his Colchester United side, who got their season up and running and thoroughly deserved the points based on the final 30 minutes of the game. So thank you, Ryan, for joining us again.
Much appreciated, mate.
Harry, enjoyed having you on for your debut. Sorry it couldn't be to talk about a win, but fingers crossed we can get you back on later in the season to discuss 3 points.
Yeah, hopefully people will find out I'm not this negative every week. Thank you very much.
We can only say it as we see it, can't we? Gills fans, thank you, as I say, all the time. You've watched now for about an hour, so thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Please keep doing all that you do. I say it every episode, liking, sharing, retweeting, subscribing. Tell your people about us, tell your friends about us, please. I said the other day, if we get to 3,000 subscribers, I will do a giveaway, whether that's match tickets or some sort of, I don't know, classic football shirts voucher or that type of thing. So the quicker we get there, the quicker I can give you people something as a reward. There will be no match day live on Tuesday. Unfortunately, I'm not going to Kenilworth Road because I'm away on a family holiday. There will then also be no match preview ahead of Grimsby, but myself and Ava will be on the coach next Saturday, travelling up to somewhere northern, because everything's northern for us. Even Colchester's northern for us, for another match day live. Hope your week is not too stressful. And until next time, up the Gills.